Bama's still hitting the road recruiting, and then in 2025, they're going to hit the road a lot. What are the toughest games facing the Crimson Tide next year?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama HSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Bama Online's Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, of course, is awesome, and we'll tell you about FanDuel. Also want to thank you every day for being here every day, and thank you newbies for being here today. Jimmy, let's talk about some recruiting to start off with. Alabama's still on the road, still trying to make inroads all over the place. Kalen DeBoer is going to be meeting with one of On3's top 100 defenders and maybe the top one name in all of next year's recruiting class from Glenville High School in Cleveland, Ohio. It's Cincere Johnson.
That is a cool name. Yeah, top 100 player, big-time linebacker. Look, I don't think there's an area on the team that Alabama's got to overemphasize in recruiting the 26 class. I don't think they need to assign an excessive number at any position. I think they, as I always say, they need to sign a full team of players, 22, 24 guys that constitute a team. And, but in terms of where they need to hit home runs, to me, it's in the defensive front seven, the defensive line, the linebackers, the rush edge. I think that front seven needs to really be big time. Now, on the field this fall, those guys will be pretty good, but there's so many upperclassmen there, so many draft eligible guys. For instance, the top three inside linebackers this upcoming year, they're all in their final year of eligibility. Deontay, Justin Jefferson, Greenhill, the transfer from Colorado, Nakia Greenhill. Alabama needs to do really well in the front seven, and Cincere Johnson, who has Alabama in the top two, check it out on BOL. Andrew Bone or Joseph Hastings, I think it's Bone, did an interview with Cincere Johnson over the weekend, and now DeBoer's going to see him on this holiday, which is a big deal. So I would think he's a big priority, and it'd be fun to sign one of the very best players in the country, who happens to be from Ohio, at the same time Ohio State is so nationally relevant as they are, especially as we record this today.
Yeah, they play in a national championship game tonight, which we will briefly discuss later on because, hey, they ain't wearing crimson, how that saying goes. So another guy that Alabama is very high on in 2026 is Tyler Merrill. Yep. Merrill is the number 81 overall player, number 5 interior offensive lineman, and second-ranked recruit in Pennsylvania. Again, just interesting that Alabama's really hitting a couple areas that have teams that have been in the Final Four this year.
Yeah, and the thing, I haven't really done my own personal offensive line board. Not that I do that, but I watch a lot of the tape of the guys that Alabama's recruiting and a lot of the national elite guys, whether Alabama's recruiting them or not. And while I'm just now beginning to formulate my thoughts about the 26 class, Merrill's already one that stands out to me as a real big time guy. It's funny, he's from Pennsylvania, but he screams SEC to me. He's an SEC lineman, and I'm wondering, I know it wasn't the best year for the SEC this past year. I don't think the SEC was passed, but I don't think the SEC had a great year. Don't underestimate how the draw for recruits to play in this league, even if they grow up in Big Ten country. Like Merrill here, who's from Pennsylvania and is obviously close to Penn State, close to Ohio State. He's in that Big Ten cradle. But the draw to play in the SEC is huge. And I think Alabama has a reasonably good shot at Tyler Merrill, considering he's a top 100 player from that part of the country.
It is interesting because it does create a dilemma for some guys. Like, do you want to play in the conference? I know that some people say it's debatable. I don't think it's debatable. That has the most uniform, high-end competition, and probably get the most eyeballs on the whole. Now, Ohio State gets as many eyeballs as anybody else.
Sure.
But or do you want to play in something like the Big Ten, which is considered to be 1B to the SEC's 1A, and in some eyes, 1A to SEC's 1B, and not play super competition necessarily every week? Because, look, people can say what they want to and throw out the bowl things because none of that stuff matters anymore. But, Minnesota and Purdue, all those Rutgers, they aren't.
Yeah, Northwestern.
They aren't the middle to lower tier quality of the SEC teams, if you ask me. Again, I'm just one man's opinion on Locked On Bama in the SEC country, but it does create a dilemma. Like, do you want to play best of the best as often as possible, or do you want to be in a situation where, you play the best of the best occasionally, but a lot of times you sort of run up and you're going to be running people out of the gym.
Yeah, the NFL draft remains a big-time barometer, right? I mean, the SEC has dominated the NFL draft. The prospects know this. I mean, they want to go play college football, but they've always got an eye on the NFL, and the NFL drafts more SEC players than any other conference and has for something like 15 years in a row. And for everybody saying that the SEC is down, and by the way, I can agree with that. I just say the SEC's down doesn't mean it's still not the best conference. And I still think it's the best. I think it's closer to the Big Ten than maybe in some previous years. But I think the NFL draft is going to once again, there'll be more SEC players, maybe by less of a margin than there normally is. But I think the SEC will still lead the pack in terms of players drafted, and the recruits know this. Also, don't think any other conference is going to make a run at the SEC other than the Big Ten when it comes to the draft. And I also think this SEC thing about the last 2 years, the SEC's down. I don't really think this is some sort of a long-term dip. I really don't. As someone recently pointed out, I'm kind of stealing this, but someone recently pointed out, look, Texas almost beat Ohio State. How close was that? They were at the 1 yard line. It could have gone to overtime. Texas almost beat Ohio State. Last year, Alabama took the national champion to overtime. Alabama could have easily won that game, and then Alabama would have been a favorite to beat Washington in the national championship game. So for all this, well, the SEC is not the final, the SEC is not the national championship game. Hey, the bounce of a football, and Alabama's your 23 national champ, and Texas is your 24 national champ.
Yeah, the narrative is Ohio State doubled up Texas, and they did. It's true. It's a fact. But you're right. Texas had the ball on the 1 yard line. They tried one run up the gut and said, oh, God, we're scared to death for some reason. And then they went wide and screwed everything up.
Needs to practice that tush push. That's the way to go. I know it doesn't work every single time, but it works enough of the time.
Well, I would think it'd work at least 1 out of 4 times.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have a physical, strong quarterback, now Quinn Ewers, I wouldn't call him that because he's hurt a lot, but he's not a little guy either. But heck, get 2 offensive linemen and just push the pile into the end zone.
It certainly makes a lot more sense. Of course, as Pat Dye said, hindsight is 50-50. That's one of my favorite sayings, by the way. The fact that he screwed it up and it kind of still makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
It's just brilliant.
It's totally messed up, but everybody knows what you're saying. And
everybody knows exactly what I'm.
People say, that's so wrong, but I agree.
Well, let's talk Prize Picks. This message is brought to you by Prize Picks, the place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions in winnings. Prize Picks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports, whether it's the playoffs or the regular season. Prize Picks has it made easier than ever to win big while enjoying the football action. Now it's playoff time, and we're down to the nitty gritty. And there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players. And if your picks hit, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. That's right, 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, because, of course, there you can run your game. Jimmy, you had an interesting post on Bama Online about the road games, like which road game will be roughest, and it made me think. Let's look at Alabama's road games next year and let's rank them in terms of least likely to win to most likely to win. Now, the road games as a refresher for everybody: at Florida State, at Georgia, at Missouri, at South Carolina, at Auburn. Those are absolute. That's got to be the toughest road schedule of anybody in the country. It's got to be.
Now consider that if DeBoer doesn't come through and put Alabama in the playoff, he's sort of going to be on, I hate the word hot seat, but imagine Alabama not in the playoff next year, the heat that will be on DeBoer, yet he's got to manage that road schedule.
Okay. Most likely to win. Let's start there.
Yeah, I would go Florida State, but
I thought I was going to shock you. Yes, I'm going Florida State.
I would go Florida State, and I can't believe I'm saying that out loud as total proof of how vicious the schedule is. The easiest road game is against a team that just 2 seasons ago was number 4 or number 5 in the country going into the postseason, and that's the 5th easiest game. And hey, I'm convinced of this. Alabama's not going to play a 2-10 team in that opening game. That's not a 2-10, 3-9, 4-8 team. No, that's going to be a team that will be a contender to win the ACC. I'm not the favorite. That'll probably be Miami, or Clemson, but they won't be the favorite. They're a good team. It's crazy that they would be the 5th team on this list, but I agree with you, man.
Here's what's funny about that. And because you put them 5th, and me too, it sounds like you're making them, okay, that's the easiest one. Technically, that's true. But it's like if you're in the Ms. America pageant, you're down to the final 5, and they go, Ms. Iowa is 5th place. And everybody's like, how ugly is she?
Yeah, what a dog.
Like, no, she's 5th among the Ms. America contest. They're all hot. And she's 5th. That's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
But, okay, so we both agree it's Florida State.
We both agree that Florida State is Miss America and Miss Iowa.
Florida State is Miss Iowa.
Florida State's Miss Iowa. They're 5th.
Because let's be honest, Miss Florida would be hotter than Miss Iowa. But anyway, the next one, and this is where it gets tricky for me. Guess I'm going to do Missouri.
That's what I would do. Missouri. I do think Missouri might be better than Auburn. It's going to be roughly about the same in terms of who's better on the field. I just think Missouri would be 4th. A lot depends on their new quarterback, Bo Pribula, the backup from Penn State that looked really good when he was in for Aller at times. But Missouri's going to be very good again. They'll be a contender. I don't think Missouri's going to be a contender to win the league, Luke, but I do think Missouri's going to be like 8 wins, 9 wins, 8-9 win team again.
Yeah, I think so too. And the thing is, we play them in between Vanderbilt and Tennessee. And guess what? Missouri has an off week before they play us. I know you're shocked.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be a tough game. I mean, to me, again, the fact that we play 3 tougher road games in Missouri is scary as heck.
Okay, the next. This is where I think we're about to differ because of something sneaky you just said.
Yeah,
I'm going South Carolina next.
I figured you would. I'm going to say Auburn, but I knew you would go. And just because of this, yes, Auburn's haunted. Nick Saban himself said that on College Game Day this year, that Auburn is haunted. Auburn's also going to be an improved team. That we've only won so many in a row. That's bound to end. We've had an extremely difficult time beating them our last 2 or 3 trips in there. We had really good teams and very nearly lost. Like seemingly the last 100 times we've either lost or nearly lost. So it's going to be hard, but I'm going to put Auburn there just because I think South Carolina is a better team than Auburn.
Again, I'm fair, and South Carolina does return the more proven quarterback, which is interesting. But I can't. I mean, I'm from Tallapoosa County. I know Nick Saban. It's not just haunted; it's haunted, and it's built on old crashed UFOs. They're unicorn dusted grass blades, leprechauns mated on that field in the past. There's horseshoes inside of the goalpost. There's everything. And it's not necessarily that way for everybody. It's that way for us. And you think about, the national championship team, second and 26 team, lost by double digits there. Now, I know it's, I'm picking nits, but they lost by double digits there. Then the 2019 team, which was great, even though we were without Tua, Mac Jones played a good game, and a ball had to bounce off Najee Harris's incredibly round posterior to end up to. By the way, I think I've said this on the pod before.
Najee finished 5th in Miss America.
He did, but isn't it wild that Steve Sarkisian was our offensive coordinator and tries a pass play when we could have just handed it to Najee and scored and gone up 2 scores, probably win that game.
There you go. Yeah, Sark's had some. Sark's a great play caller. It just goes to show how hard that job is. It goes to show because he's great. He might be the best. And gosh, there's some flubs in there. But that's because hindsight is 50-50, like we started the show with. Hindsight's 50-50. If those plays work, if you execute the play and you execute it correctly, I mean, Texas didn't get that on the sweep. Texas gave it away in alignment, and then they didn't get it blocked. But, I agree. Sark's had some flubs with the play calling around the end. And so,
I guess
Auburn's going to be really hard to beat at Auburn, and South Carolina's going to be really hard to beat in Columbia. Very, very, very good football teams could easily lose there next fall, and they probably will. Those are 2 good teams. I think South Carolina, Luke's going to be preseason top 10, and I think Auburn's going to be preseason top 20.
So we don't really need to go in because I think we'd flip-flop those 2. That's fine. And obviously Georgia, number 1. But going back, by the way, to what you said, it just dawned on me that my brother and I were just talking a minute ago about Baltimore yesterday, going for 2. They had a good play call, but Mark Andrews drops the pass. Now, he drops it. It wasn't the best pass. It could have been better. A pro needs to catch it, even in those conditions. But my first thought was, if y'all don't hand this ball to Derrick Henry, y'all are out of your minds. And, of course, they don't. And they tried to do it with Mark Andrews, who had already fumbled earlier. And because he didn't catch what would have been a moderately difficult catch, it makes everybody look stupid. And, of course, now I can say you should have had Derrick Henry. Of course, that's 2 yards. He might not have gotten it either. But regardless, Georgia's got to –
You know what Peyton Manning would do on the goal line? I've always loved this because it's just so smart because Peyton had a 300 IQ on the field. Peyton on the goal line sometimes on like they're on the 2-yard line. He calls a toss sweep left. Toss sweep. That's the call. Toss sweep left. So everyone on the team's going, okay, toss sweep left. The backs look, okay, I'm running left, and Peyton's going to toss it to me. And then Peyton on his own and by himself fakes the toss sweep, hides the ball, and naked bootlegs right into the end zone. That's so smart. No one on the team can give it away. Everyone on the team's like, well, it's toss sweep left. So the defense who has their keys goes, hey, when they do this, they run toss sweep left. And the action is all that way because that's the way they're going. But Peyton keeps the ball and goes right. And I know that it takes a special quarterback to do that. Peyton, less athletic than Quinn Ewers, by the way. I just wonder if maybe Texas should have dreamed up something like that. But
probably less athletic than Ewers Quinn, who is just a random mechanic in Indiana. But anyway, by the way, if Peyton Manning had done that, I just had the thought, what if Jalen Milroe did that and it didn't work? We would have shot him in a cannon to the moon.
And you would, and the funny thing is, you would guess with a Milroe, that would work 999 times out of 1,000. But the time it didn't
would be against Michigan.
Yeah.
And so we both agree Georgia's number 1. I mean, it goes without saying. Now, having said that,
I'm curious how quarterback's going to work out for them. By the way, I hear from the inside over there, they're really high on Ryan Puglisi, the quarterback that redshirted, and it's obviously right now going to be between him and Gunnar Stockton. And I just tend to think that even with Carson Beck's up and downs, that Carson Beck's probably a better quarterback next fall than those 2 guys.
What makes that game even more interesting So Alabama will have played at Florida State and Wisconsin, and so they will be tested. Georgia will have not played much until the third game where they're at Tennessee in their first SEC game. It's not crazy to think Tennessee wins that. I don't think they do, but it's not crazy. And then
in Knoxville, right?
Yeah, and so they both have an off week.
I picked Tennessee.
What if Georgia comes in 0-1 and it's a must win and the pressure's on? And I don't know. I just find that to be pretty intriguing. So
the start in that game will be huge, just like it was this past year. But I'll say this. Alabama's had tremendous success against Georgia over the past 10 or 12 matchups. Very few of those games that Alabama won has been in Athens. Alabama's won in Tuscaloosa. They've won those neutral site games in Atlanta. They beat them in Athens in 2015, 15, and 2008. I'm not sure how relevant that is to today, but that game is going to be extremely tough to win. And I didn't know that Tennessee fact. You just brought it up, Luke. That's super interesting. And if Georgia and Tennessee are playing in Knoxville, with Tennessee returning Nico and Georgia starting either Gunnar Stockton or Ryan Puglisi, I'm telling you today, I'm picking Tennessee to win that game.
Time to talk a little FanDuel, because FanDuel is awesome, and it's just the best. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs and players even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keep every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly, baby. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of, tell them, Jimmy.
The NFL.
That was your worst. By the way,
I know Robinson or Josh Pate with the live reads.
That 2015 Georgia game, I've said this before, but I was there and it was raining and it was awful and it was nasty and it was so much fun because we were winning and they were so cocky. And there was a family in front of me, a man, his wife, and their two young sons. And Alabama's just beating the brakes off of Georgia at halftime. And in the third quarter, Alabama scores again. And the wife looks at the husband, and they're just outside of the shelter area. So they're getting dunked on. They're just soaking wet. The kids are like, Daddy, I want to go home. And the wife says, hey, Harry, can we, maybe we can go. He goes, the players are here. We're here. And I wanted to tap him on the shoulder and go, you're not playing. You're not legally obligated to stay. You don't lose your scholarship if you leave. You get to leave. It makes you dumber to stay.
It's hilarious that you picked out his name as Harry.
I know. I just
Harry. Hunker down, Harry dog. Harry. You went
just,
Harry.
Alabama in the NFL. By the way, congrats to Devonte Smith. He became the Philadelphia Eagles' all-time leading receiver in playoff yardage. It wasn't a high bar, but still, he beats out Harold Carmichael, who was fantastic back in the day, sort of a guy from Jimmy and my time. But and he only had 21 yards yesterday. But what this means is, assuming he's going to be with Philly for a while, which I think he will, he's going to obliterate that record, right? And now I feel really good about Philly winning and going to the Super Bowl, and I'm pulling for a Philly-Buffalo Super Bowl at this point. So I'd love to see Amari Cooper at least. The Chiefs have no Bammers that I know of. But so I want to see Amari Cooper. I'm upset for Derrick Henry. I wanted Derrick Henry to get to the Super Bowl and Marlon Humphrey, but
who's got a better chance to beat the Chiefs, the Bills or the Eagles?
Ooh, I'm gonna say the Eagles because the defense, and because I think it's just going to be different when it's not an Arrowhead. The Chiefs just play an Arrow. The Chiefs are the only team that play 22 games a year. They don't even play 22 games, and they play all 22 in Arrowhead Stadium. It seems like. So
they are there a lot.
The Natty is tonight. Jimmy, prediction?
Ohio State wins probably easily. That's my prediction. I'm rooting for Notre Dame and my pal Riley Leonard. And again, I've said it before a couple times, but my buddy Mike, his daughter dates Riley, and they have been since the 10th grade, and so he's sort of his son-in-law by now, since they've been dating for 7 years, literally, I think 8 years. Anyway, so I'm really rooting for Riley, and of course Riley trained at QB Country, so we know Riley well. So rooting for Riley, but I think Ohio State wins easily. What do you think?
I think Ohio State wins easily. I'm rooting for Riley. I'm with you. I'm rooting for Marcus Freeman.
Yeah.
I'm not anti Caleb Downs. I'm pro. I mean, Caleb Downs has basically come out and said, I didn't really want to leave, but I felt I had no choice, kind of thing. And I think I think Ohio State wins. I think it's probably better for college football if Notre Dame wins, because I think
Freeman feels popular, which is not normal for the Notre Dame coach, but it seems that America really likes Marcus Freeman and Ryan Day not so much.
Ryan Day looks like a Ken Doll's grandfather, doesn't he?
I think he looks like a villain in a kid's movie.
So, well, my daughter says he
like
looks
the bad guy, Kindergarten Cop, whatever that was. Like he'd
Yeah.
be the bad guy in Kindergarten Cop.
My daughter says he looks like the ventriloquist dummy from the Goosebumps series.
There you go.
Anyway, so some more hoop stuff. AP poll will be out today. Look, I saw CBS does their little, AP whatever, their AP preview, and they still have Bama at 4, even losing to Ole Miss, and then of course beating Kentucky. Because last week everybody, with the glaring exception and vomiting-inducing exception of Auburn, lost in the AP top 25. It feels like,
yeah.
And so this is going to be just the way it is. And again, look, Alabama's resume speaks for itself. And yes, they have 3 losses now, but none of loss. It's funny that one of the losses, Purdue and Oregon played each other, and now Purdue goes on the road and beats Oregon, which is, huge for Purdue. But I'm like, that doesn't even hurt us. It's like it almost helps because it was a good game, and it lets you know Purdue's good and Oregon's good. That's the Oregon game's the one game I wish we had that back.
Alabama's lost to 3 teams, all of whom could be, I think, reasonably Sweet 16 teams. Could be.
Oh, I totally agree with you. And it would be, I think some of them, I don't know about Oregon, but I think Ole Miss could make one of those funky SEC South Carolina runs to the Final Four.
I was impressed that Ole Miss almost beat Mississippi State in Starkville. That's not going to be.
They were down 16-4.
Yeah. The Alabama game, for those of you who don't believe me, you wait until next week when Alabama's got to play in Starkville. It's going to be tough. They're very, very athletic, and they're long.
I'm telling you, it's just going to be a fun league, and Alabama probably won't win the league. I'm going to go on a limb and say that Auburn will win the league. I believe that. And again, they deserve it. I think they're the best team in the country. I hate saying it. I think it's true.
Today they are, and what I'm hoping, this is wish casting, as one of my favorite terms, meaning that maybe I'm forecasting something just because I want it to happen, but I'm hoping that we say this: January and February were Auburn's time, and March and April was Alabama's time. I'm hoping
so too, and as my good friend and your good friend, I think I don't know if y'all are friends or not, but Michael Southern, Tide Hoops History.
Yeah, y'all are tighter, but I know Michael and I like him. Does great.
Well, we're not dating.
He's not Miss Iowa.
Yeah, well, he hadn't returned any of my texts, but anyway, he sent me something that said Mark Sears, Aiden Holloway, and Chris Youngblood are shooting a combined 41.4% in three-pointers, 36 of 87 in SEC play. Sears is up to 40%. How about Aiden Holloway is shooting 53% from beyond the arc in SEC play, and Youngblood at 36%, but I feel like that 36% is with a bullet.
I catch Holloway sometimes passing up threes. I bet Nate does too. Holloway passes up threes every once in a while, and I'm like, I want Aiden Holloway shooting coming off the bus. I love.
He did shoot 19 in one game.
Yeah, well, other than that game, it's like when we threw it to Ryan 19 times in Knoxville.
Yeah, that is true. What
was up with that?
We should have thrown it 20.
Our mindset was a little off. Yeah. Although, in general, I do want to. Hey, when we're going to throw it to 2, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.